let me tell you about this album. This album, unlike any album that's cut with groups these days, was finished in 5 days and mixed in 2 days. Now this is, absolutely unprecedented, the way Columbia works nowadays. I mean, a Simon and Garfunkel album, or a Bruce Springsteen album. I mean, this is 6 or 7 months in the studio of, experimentation, of discarding this, adding that, overdubbing. None of that with Bob. And this album has a flow that you won't find in any other album recorded in 1974.
Welcome back to Wall of Power TV. I'm your host, Paul Metsa. Join us again for some great conversation with most of the guys that played live on Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks from the Minneapolis sessions. We're celebrating the release of a 6-disc set featuring the New York sessions and Minneapolis sessions. Did you ever sit there and go, damn, that was a hell of a tune, or a hell of a take?
That one for sure.
That one.
What did you feel, Greg, when you got done playing that?
There was nothing more to say. I mean, that was one
The room
take.
went dead.
One take, and everybody was quiet. It was like,
one take.
Is that it?
And Paul Martin's 2-track mix.
Yeah.
Safety Masters. Remember they used to make Safety Masters in those old days. I think it was 24-track, wasn't it, Kev?
Yeah.
It wasn't 16. It had just moved to 24, I think, in the early days, And before the digital thing, when, Sound 80, we got the digital tape, and Bill Berg and I were on the ground floor of 3M, the digital tape from 3M.
Tom Jung.
What's that?
Tom Jung was involved.
Tom Jung, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
One of the
talk
great
about
engineers.
for a minute, 4 of you chime in if you'd like, about Paul Martinson as the engineer on the session.
Well, I can speak because I recorded with him a lot, maybe. Maybe you did too, Greg, but we all did. But Paul would be the engineer on early morning calls, okay? And we'd get up in the morning, Berg and I would go in and have a bunch of coffee to try to, whatever we'd done, probably the Longhorn the night before, and we'd have a, 9 o'clock call or something, right? And we'd get in there in the morning, and Paul, his nickname was Two, because when he always said his nickname was Two, like TWO.
Right.
Because when he had a way of announcing like track 1, track 2, he always go 2. And so his nickname was Two to me and Berg, right? Hey, what's Two doing? He's out having a square, So anyway, but Paul, in regards to Dylan, but he was a great engineer through many, many great projects I worked on, including Leo. Leo loved Paul Martinson, like Dylan did. Okay, so anyway, with Dylan, all those tracks were Dylan. I got a great story to, it's a little long, man. But
Let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's save that. We're going to just let the engineer take a minute to roll his tape, and then we'll come back for that story one more go around and call the interview a day. Is Andy Watson still alive?
Can I have an out, Paul? Just give me
Yeah.
That was the worst outro yet.
That was that was dreadful.
Try to get the fingers in
I
there.
take back my compliment from before.
Yeah, they both suck.
John was all up.
I was going to give a new nickname for you, the king of the outro.
Should have seen last night's audience.
Oh, Jesus. All right. We're going to have a little bit more on Wall of Power TV with the live human beings who played on Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks, Minneapolis, 1974, after these messages.
Get the standing ovulation.
You see, when he flips me off, I can see that.
There's always something going on at Grumpy's. For happy hour on Monday, it's half-price beer and wine. Killer prices on local taps all day Saturday and bottles of wine at half price every Sunday. At night, the turntables at Grumpy's stay busy with the Minnesota Music Listening Party on Monday and Vino Vinyl on Thursday night. Trailer Park Trivia packs the house on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. And don't miss T-Bone Bingo on Sunday nights. They have it all. Every night of the week, it's Grumpy's Northeast.
So I'm sitting here with some cool cats. Phil Harder, filmmaker, videographer supreme, worked on a lot of low videos, helped us out with the shoot today. Damien Christian, who helps run Studio 6. And we're just...
That's all I get?
We just... Okay, so we just finished wrapping up about a 3-hour interview with 6 of the guys, 1 on telephone, 1 on Skype, and 4 in the studio who played on Blood on the Tracks. I heard some stories I never heard before. If you love Bob Dylan and you love Blood on the Tracks, you are gonna really love these episodes. We'll save you a seat.
Who's playing guitar?
Chris Webber's playing.
Paul is in that chair. He's going to call up a guy who's on Skype and also a guy who's on Facebook, whatever. So before we do that, we're going to stop recording. We're going to turn that TV on, and then that person will be visually represented on that TV. And then who is going to be sitting in love seat number 1?
Let's put Kevin as close to me, Kevin.
All right, Kevin Odegaard is in that seat. Who's in the next seat?
Why don't we just do it right here? Billy, Greg, Peter.
Okay, yeah, I can bring my bass back, but
Yeah.
That's
Or Billy
the
can sit
bass.
over
We
there.
don't need the bass.
Okay.
The bass doesn't need to be in the shot. We can get to that later.
All right.
Okay, again. So then we got Peter. So then who's in that one?
Billy.
Billy's in that one, and Billy knows this? All right, very good. Next one?
All right, welcome back. We're going to do one more go-around. Tonight, Greg Inhofer has a great Bill Berg story.
Bill taught me a lesson that I carried through the last 50 years, 40 years of my career, 44 years of my career. It was right after we had done Jack of Hearts, which is a very simple 3-chord song.
Right.
And if you listen to it, you can see how it was so simple that I got confused. I played
Sure.
some wrong chords
Well,
here
you're
and
a
there.
jazz cat.
Yeah. Do it twice, it's jazz.
Yeah.
And I was used to seeing him with Natural Life down at the Longhorn, and
Right.
had him held in very high esteem. So the song itself, the drum track is very simple. It's a train, you know.
Right.
And so we're listening to the playback, and here's, you know, I'm this 25-year-old. We're playing McLaughlin and
Right.
Chick Corea,
Corea, sure.
and Weather Report and all
Yeah.
this, and all of a sudden I got these 3 chords. Well, they tripped me up, but but here's Bill over in the corner listening with Bob, and he's going, okay, I can either do it like ba-doo-ba-da-ba-doo, ba-da-ba-doo, ba-da-ba-doo, or I can do da-ba-doo, ba-da-ba-doo, ba-da-ba-doo. And I'm watching this and I'm going, crap. I just saw him as this giant reservoir of talent.
Right.
And it all came down to a little spigot. And he was handing that spigot to Bob saying, hey, turn on as much or as little as you want. And what impressed me for the rest of my career was when I went in to do a session, I always rather would have the session come out and have people say, what a great session, what a great commercial, as opposed to, boy, that really sucked, but listen to that keyboard player. But that's because of Bill Berg, right. that perspective. He gave me that perspective in that moment of watching him, you know, ask Bob whether he wanted dabba-doo-ba-dabba-doo or right. doo-ba-dabba-doo-ba-dabba.
I've got to ask Peter Ostrushko, because we heard something tonight I don't think any of us knew, that number one, Peter Ostrushko not only was Blood on the Tracks his first recording session, it was the first time as a 21-year-old he was ever in a recording studio.
yeah, I didn't know that either.
So Peter now, over the years, you know, all of us are Minneapolis cats, so we bump into each other, go to hear each other play, occasionally play together. And then we got to, you know, got together in 2001 at First Avenue for the $1 Million Bash. How do you feel the real bond is between you guys that played on Blood on the Tracks in Minneapolis? Is that something special?
Sure. It is something special.
I mean, we all play in different areas, different
Right.
places, but yeah,
But you
you
kinda
can
have a-
see
you-
each other out
you-
somewhere, and it's you just
you have a
feel
little
this.
bond.
You feel this camaraderie of we did something together. Yeah, we got. Never mind.
Right.
Well, you know, Paulie, on that line, everybody says, okay, Phil Ramone produced that session, right? And it's on the liner notes forever, right, John? So Phil wasn't on set at all, any time there. The guy that was on set was David Zimmerman. And, you know, it goes, and Kevin, you and I talk about it, man. A lot of times he goes uncredited about putting us together. We knew each other, but we had never played together before until we got into that studio, all of us. You remember that? And it was his first, I knew about him, but I never had played with him. He's a young cat, he's 21, I'm 23, you're 23. It's 1974, you and I are the same. Ooh, you got me by a year. Oh. So, but I mean, you know, it goes, Kevin and I talk, it goes unsung what David Zimmerman did, putting us together. Because he said, okay, we got the rhythm section, you know, and Stan was part of your idea originally, Kev. But then somehow he opted, but I think probably because we had been working with David as a rhythm section, why we got the call, you know, and your suggestion didn't roll. That's the only thing I can think about. And
Well, it's not like I feel like, I'm sure none of us feel like the reason it was successful or anything is because of anything we did.
Right.
It's the serendipity. It's the moment of it just happened. It was fate. It was a simple twist of.
Right.
You know, we just happened to work. We just happened to work.
You know what? And I have to make a confession now, because my first Bob Dylan record I listened to was Bob Dylan. The first one in about '68 when my sister went to college in Duluth. And then after that, I got into Blonde on Blonde, Highway 61. And when I heard Blood on the Tracks for the first time, I didn't like it. And I stopped listening to Bob Dylan for 10 years. Plus, I needed some time off because it didn't have what Bob described as Blonde on Blonde, Highway 61, that wild Mercury sound. Well, I credit that hole in my consciousness to the folly of youth, and good things happen to those who wait. Now, when I got into it 10 years later, I completely fell in love with it. And maybe part of it was taking time off from listening to Dylan. But now when I tell people the story about how we all got together 2001 and about, I go, it wasn't the wild Mercury sound, it was the mild Mercury sound.
There was a common thread. There was a common thread that brought us together and that makes us smile each time we run into one another in public or private or in performance. And we've often gotten together and played those songs and other songs together. It's called trust. And it started with David Zimmerman because he hired people who he trusted. And now we trust one another. So we've carried that forward.
It was a special group of people that got together, had no idea really how far they could take it, and took it to the top. That will never be taken away from you gentlemen that played on Blood on the Tracks. And what a great Minnesota moment it was. It has stood the test of time. And now with this release, which Kevin will tell us about as he rounds things up, is this really spectacular piece of Bob Dylan and Minnesota music history. And I think no one on this panel could describe it better than the guy that's listened to more records than all of us put together and written about him, Minneapolis music critic John Bream. Tell us about your thoughts, how Blood on the Tracks fits into Dylan's canon and the canon of the last 100 years of American music.
For me personally, it's my favorite Dylan album, maybe because of this story that we've all heard today. It's his most personal album. It's that breakup album, the story of his life falling apart, his marriage falling apart, the woman he had all his kids with, or the ones we knew about anyway at the time. And I think one thing that we don't think about, and maybe is the undercurrent of all of what we're talking about today, in a lot of ways, it's his most Minnesota album. And we're always proud of the fact that Bob Dylan is one of us. And this, maybe more than any other album, speaks to the fact that Bob Dylan is one of us, and he's a Minnesotan through and through. Even though he left us long ago, this album, Blood on the Tracks, is blood on the range, blood on the Twin Cities. It's blood on Minnesota.
That is so well put, John Bream. And the thing I love about Bob Dylan, number one, is his Iron Range work ethic. His guitar is like his lunch pail. He takes it out, does 120 gigs a year, and then gets on the bus. But there's nothing more, and now he's welding, and there's nothing more Iron Range than being a welder. Anyway, I think the best, first of all, I want to thank John Bream, Billy Peterson, Peter Ostrushko, Greg Inhofer, my brother Kevin Odegaard, Billy Berg, who was with us on the, by phone from North Carolina, Chris Weber, who was with us on Skype from California to be a part of this, what I would like to think, capturing history in real time on Wall of Power TV. When I had the inspiration to put together a show celebrating Bob Dylan's 60th birthday, which ended up at First Avenue, there was only one guy I could call that I knew could help me put it together, and I think this man could tell you the story about that show, why we are here, and where we are today, and about this six-disc set. Kevin Odegaard.
You are the story. You were the one that brought us back together. The Blood on the Range, the Blood Brothers, the Blood on the Tracks Live. We'll go under any of those names. Mostly thanks to the fact that you finally loved the album and decided to glue us back together. Very different types of musicians whom Bob related to, even though he and Berg didn't talk about Hibbing in the studio. I think when he saw Berg, he saw Hibbing, he saw home. He felt like he was in a garage band again with us. And we were Minnesotans, and that relaxed Bob and made him feel at home and comfortable to work with you. And to, from the get-go, really, the only formal part of those sessions were the many takes of Idiot Wind. From then on, we were a basement band. We were a garage band. We were gluing it together. In 2001, when the phone rang, and community activist Paul Metza had decided to bring us into the arena of First Avenue, where Prince became famous, I wondered if it would work. I was unsure because we'd all gone our separate ways. It's been many years since we'd even seen one another. But that night, when we all got together, except Bill Berg, and we played those songs together, there was really something there.
That would help. Got it. He's going to wait this time, Paul, so we just vamp, and then he's going to start the harmonica as if it's a verse.
Great. Let's do that.
Laying in bed, wondering if she had changed it all or if her hair was still red. Her folks had said our lives together sure was gonna be rough. Never did like mama's homemade bread, Papa's bank book wasn't big enough. And I was standing on the side of the road, rain falling on my shoes. Headed out for the East Coast, Lord knows I paid some dues. Kept tangled up in blue. She was married when we first met, soon to be divorced. I helped her out of a jam, I guess, but I used a little too much force. Drove my car as far as we could, abandoned it out west. Split up on a dark sad night, both the in west. Turned around to look at me, I was walking away. I looked say over my shoulder, we'll meet again someday on the avenue. Tangled up in blue. I had a job as a big North Woods, working for a cookie spell. I never did like it all that much, and one day the actions fell. I took a dive to New Orleans, I was lucky enough to be employed. Then I on a fishing club right outside of Delacroix. But all the while the past was going by. Sing it, Stanley. I knew enough to live it, but they never escaped my mind, and I just grew tangled up in blue. She was working at a topless place, and I subbed in for a bit. Drew kept looking at the side of her face in the spotlight so big. Later on, when the clouds came down, I stood about to do the same. She was standing there on the back of my chair. She said something I know his name. For the sun underneath my breath, and she stared at the lines on my face. I almost felt I did a little uneasy when she stepped down and tied the shoes on my shoes. Tangled up in blue. She lit the burner on the stove and offered me a pipe. I thought you'd never say hello, she said. You look like the silent night. Then she opened up a book of poems and handed it to me, written by an Italian poet from the 13th century. Never one of them words rang true and glowed like burning coal, pouring off of every page like it was written in my soul. From me to you, tangled up in blue. Music in the cafes at night and revolution in the air. And he started in to dealing with slaves, so something inside her died. She had to sell everything she owned and froze up inside. And when it finally the bottom fell out, I became withdrawn. The only thing I knew how to do was to keep on keeping on till the burden fell. Tangled up in blue. So now I'm going back again. I got to get to her somehow. All the people need to know are an illusion to me now. Some are mathematicians, some are carpenters' wives. Don't know how it all got started. I don't know what they're doing with their lives. For me, I'm still on the road, heading for another joint. We always did feel the same. We just saw it from a different point of view. Tangled up in blue.
job, boys. That's a take. That's all, folks.
Someday